By what name are you known?
There are some who call me Tim.
Welcome to another episode of Timmy Talks, the channel where we talk old school magic. And today we are back in Amsterdam for the quarterfinals of the Raging Bulls series. So we're about to see two decks who are performing really well at today's tournament. On the right side we have Dutchman Madi. He's playing a blue, black and red, a robots deck. And he is taking on Hall of Famer Olle Rade, and he's playing Counterburn. So this promises to be a high-level match. Very exciting. But before I start with the deck tech section of the video, I've got lovely deck photos of both of these decks. I would first like to point out that, as always, you can also choose to first go to the match, check out the deck techs later. The easiest way to do this is by checking out the description below, because there you will find a timestamp, well, several timestamps actually, and one of those timestamps reads MTG Games. So if you click on there, it'll take you straight to the games. And in that same description below, you will also find a link to the Timmy Talks Patreon page, because yes, I have my very own Patreon program. So if you're enjoying the content that I make about old school magic, these tournament reports, please consider becoming a sponsor of the show. It already starts for just $1 a month. And you can do this via patreon.com/TimmyTalks. So if you have a moment, please visit my Patreon page and consider becoming a patron of the show. Okay, and now that you're fully informed, I'm going to continue with the deck techs. I'm actually going to start with the player sitting on the left. That is Olle Rade. Let's have a look at his deck. And here we see the counter burn deck of Olle Rade, and I mean, this is looking fierce, right? This deck went undefeated in the Swiss and is now facing a robots deck. Now, Olle Rade, counter burn, what does it want to do? It's quite simple. You want to play out your cheap creatures, right? We've got 4 Ironclaw Orcs, we've got 3 Surrender Befriets. You just want to play those creatures out as early as you can, maybe ramp up a little bit. Then he's also playing, of course, with all the Mistress Factories, so he can use those to attack as well. Just deal as much damage as possible, and then you can finish it off with your burn. So if you can deal, like, I don't know, 8 points of damage with your creatures, you can probably do the last 12 points of damage with your burn, because this deck has a lot of burn. 4 Chain Lightnings, 4 Lightning Bolts, 3 Psionic Blasts. So that's a massive amount of burn, right? That is, let me just do some quick math. That is 36 points of burn in the deck, which is pretty crazy. And when you're playing with so much burn, the draw 7s are quite good, right? So your Wheel of Fortune is going to be really nice. Your Time Twister is going to be even better, because that lets you like put your graveyard, shuffle it right back into your library. And what are you going to shuffle back in? Of course, your Chain Lightnings, your Lightning Bolts, your Psionic Blasts. So you can just redraw them again, and then you can just burn out your opponent. So this is a very quick deck. This is a very fierce deck, and I mean, it's in the hands of Olle Rade, who is a pro player. So I mean, this is going to be a really tough match for Madi. On the other hand, Madi is playing with robots, meaning he's got trikes that can at least take out all the Ironclaw Orcs, which is something. Talking about that, let's take a look at the deck of Madi. And here we see the deck of Madi. So Madi is playing robots, right? That's pretty clear. He's playing 4 Suchis, 4 Triskelions. He's playing 4 copy artifacts. He's also playing Dance of Many, which I think is really cool. He's playing Animate Deaths. He's playing Sages of Latinam. So it's really going heavy into his artifact creatures. You know, that's how he wants to win the game. And how these decks work, it's quite simple actually. Not simple to pilot, you know, let me just correct that straight away, but quite simple what you want to do. You want to ideally play out a Triskelion early, like as early as you can, with maybe your Black Lotus, your Moxen. He's also playing Mana Vault. He's got, of course, a Workshop in here. So you kind of want to play out your Triskelion quite early. And then you want to copy that like crazy with your copy artifacts. So you just have a lot of those 4/4 creatures with all those counters on them, right? Because counters are very important. You can take a counter off the trike, deal 1 damage to any target. So that's really good. And then, of course, when your trike is empty, when it's just a 1/1, you want to sack it to the Sage of Latinam to draw a card. And, of course, the Sage, I think, is really a key card here, kind of the Jam Day Tome of the deck. That's your card drawing engine. An important thing about the Sage of Latinam is that whenever your opponent targets one of your artifacts, in response, you can sack it to the Sage and you draw a card, which means card advantage. So I wouldn't be surprised if we're going to see Olle Rade using his bolts and Chain Lightnings very aggressively on the Sage of Latinam, because the Sage is really an important aspect of the deck. And when we're talking about this specific matchup, I think one of the things that Madi wants to do, even though his deck is not slow, his deck is a little bit slower than a counter burn deck, just because the counter burn deck is insanely fast. So he wants to kind of draw the game into the mid game, late game, more like into the mid game. So I think to then win it. I mean, you don't want to give Olle too much time because then you can start drawing into his draw sevens or into more burn and he could still burn you out. But I think for Madi, if the game takes a little bit longer, it's not bad because he has the better creatures. He has a little bit more value in his deck than Olle does. Another really strong card here in this match, I think, is the City in a Bottle, because of course City in a Bottle can take out the Surrendered Befrieds, and it can of course take out some of those Arabian Nights lands that Olle is playing with, so that could be difficult for him as well. Yeah, so this is the match. I'm anticipating a very close match for two reasons. Both of these decks are tier 1 decks in my opinion, and both of these players are very experienced. Madi has won several tournaments in the Netherlands. He's the organizer of the oldest old school Magic tournament, the Knights of Thorn in Deventer. And, you know, Olle Rade is a Hall of Famer. Do I need to say more? So these are two really strong opponents going face to face. So it's really hard for me to say, oh, I think that player is going to win and that player is going to lose. When we look at the Swiss, we see that Olle has a better record than Madi. But, I mean, that doesn't say anything now. I mean, we're in the top 8, you know. This is a whole new game. This is a game on its own, as they say. Anyway, enough talk. Let's go to the games. Let's go to the action. Enjoy the match between Counterburn Olle Rade versus UBR Robots by Madi. Here we go. Game number 1. Here we go. So on the left we have Olle Rade on Counterburn, and on the right we have Madi, who's on Robots. A 3-color robot stack, blue, black, and red. It looks like he's going to take a mulligan here. Going to go down to 6. And it looks like Olle here is on the play. So this is a quarterfinal match. The winner will advance to the semifinals. And Olle Rade opening here with an Iron Claw Orc. And are we going to see a quick Bolt perhaps? No, we're going to see a Sage of Latnam. So a Mox Jet, a City of Brass, and then into a beautifully signed Sage of Latnam. The artist of the Sage is Pete Venters. There's the attack for 2. Exactly, expecting Madi not to block here. We also see a Chain Lightning on the Sage of Latnam. So I kind of discussed this actually in the deck tech section, that I would expect Olle to be very aggressive towards the Sages of Latnam. Here we see another Sage being played out by Madi. And the reason for that, of course, is that the Sage is card advantage for Madi. So Olle knows this, of course. He's got another chain in hand, could chain the Sage again, and why not, actually? I'm kind of expecting him to do this. On the other hand, remember, he is playing Counterburn, so the more bolts and chains you throw at the Sage, the less you throw it at Madi directly, which is basically what your deck wants to do, right? I mean, if you would chain, which I expect exactly, if you would chain, it means that the Sages of Latnam have already soaked up 6 points of damage, which is not too shabby. And here the pass, of course, to Madi. And a bit of a mana issue, by the way, for Olle, missing a land drop there. Madi tapping 3, going to take a damage from his own City of Brass. It looks like he cannot find, I think, is it the 4 or the 3 that he's looking at? It's the 4, right? Yeah, 14. Oh, look at that, playing a Fireball. Altered one, but playing a Fireball on the Iron Claw Orc. It's, of course, the only threat that Olle has, and Olle really needs to find some lands, yeah. His deck doesn't need much, but I mean, it needs a little bit more than just an island and a Mox Ruby. Here we see another beautifully altered land. And there's the pass. There's a Bolt on end step on the life total of Madi, so he's going to drop to 11. And Olle now taking on his turn. And I believe he's got a Brain Geyser in hand. And, ooh, this is his one Shivan Dragon, playing a single Shivan in the deck. You don't want to draw that now. It's hard to see what other cards he's got in hand, by the way. I believe there's also a black card in there, perhaps a Demonic Tutor. Let's first see what Madi can do here. It's going to go down to 9. There it is. Wow, a Triskelion being played out here. Yeah, this could get out of hand very quickly. Like, Olle needs to find an answer to this strike. If not, then Madi can start copying it next turn. This can get out of hand very quickly. The positive thing here, though, for Olle is that at least he's still on 20. And, of course, Madi is taking some damage here from his own Cities of Brass. And Madi here finding some Trike Arms, I guess. Some counters. And Passing the turn here. Whoa, look at that bolt. Probably a story behind that one full of autographs. It's gonna bolt Mari. He's down to 6. So, I mean, all that Olle really needs is just 2 more bolts. Or a chain and a bolt. Or a psionic blast and a bolt. Anyway, you get my point. Doesn't need much. Mari already on 6. And Mari has to start dealing some damage. Attacking here for 4. And Olle taking the damage, going to go down to 16. 2 cards in hand, passing the turn. Ooh, there's a Blood Moon. Not quite sure if that's going to help you here. Could consider playing it. Of course, takes out the City of Brasses, but you kind of like the City of Brasses hurting Mari. Blood Moon, not a very strong card against the deck of Mari. And now he attacks here with the factory, giving Mari the options to shoot it down. That's what he does. It does mean that now the Trike is only a 2/2. I wonder what that... Is that a black card? Is that a Mind Twist instead of a Demonic Tutor? Or does he have 2 black cards in hand? It's going to attack with the 2/2. So Olle dropping to 14. And does Mari have a Copy Artifact or a Dance of Many? That would be ideal for him. 3 cards in hand. Looks like he's just going to pass. That's exactly what he does. Oh, look at that. Finding a wheel. But of course he lost that factory because he attacked with it. Still waiting to find land number 3 so he could play out, for example, the Wheel of Fortune. There's the attack. Olle dropping to 12. There's a Suchi in hand, I believe, for Mari. Gonna tap 4. There's the Suchi. Yeah, that's a big problem now for Olle. Then he's gonna take 6 damage next turn. Is that a land drawn? It is a land. Volcanic Island. Is he gonna go for the wheel? He is gonna go for the wheel. Knows that he only needs 2 more burn spells. Are we gonna see a counterspell though? There's the counterspell. Mana Drain. Oh! It's gonna go to 4. This is a close match. Gonna draw for turn. Can swing in for 6. Half the life total of Olle. Tapping 3 here. And using the 3 mana from the Mana Drain. Yep, there's another Triskelion. So that's 3 more counters. And of course he's gonna attack for 6. Put him on 6. If he has a bolt, he can finish it now. Bolt Olle, put him on 3, then shoot the counters from the Trike to kill him. Olle needs a Psionic Blast to actually win the game here, but finds a land instead. What can he do? He's going to play out the other Volcanic Island, tap 4. There's a Brain Geyser for 2. Ooh, we're going to see another counterspell, it seems. He is going to go to 3 though, but that's going to be enough here for Mari, countering it away. And that's a victory for Mari in game number 1. But it's just the first game. Both players are now going to dive into their sideboards. And we will catch back up with them in game number 2. Game number 2, here we go. So it's Olle Rade on the play here. Needs to win it to stay in the tournament. And Mari is only 1 game away from the semifinals here at the Raging Bull Series. Let's see what he can do in his first turn. Gonna go for a Volcanic Island. And passing the turn here. Okay, there's a Psionic Blast from the top. We also see a red Elemental Blast in hand, playing out the Mistress Factory, passing the turn. Does have, I believe, an island in hand there. And let's see what Mari can do. Turn 2 for him as well. There he goes. Also a Mistress Factory. Of course, the factory, a card you see very often in old school. A very good card, but as soon as you animate it, it becomes very vulnerable to all sorts of removal, so you really have to time it right. And Mari here already in the tank, kind of sorting his cards there, has a Copy Artifact in hand. Who's going to do something? Tapping 2. He's going to play a Sage of Latnam. And in a way, these Sages are kind of perfect, right? You just play them out. Worst case scenario, they soak up some direct damage, which is not too bad. And here we see Olle Drawing into a time walk. Kind of discussing maybe the quick bolt here on the Sage. Gonna attack for 2 here. Yeah, kind of has that free attack. Doesn't have to worry about a bolt by Mari because he's tapped out. So can pass the turn, keeping that red elemental blast up. So if he now tries to play a card, for example, a Sage or a copy, he can play a red elemental blast. So if Mari would here go for the play animate factory and then play copy, he can red elemental blast it. Oh, gonna go for Black Lotus, second the Lotus. And there we go. Triskelion hitting the board. Yeah, that's what you want to do if you're the robots player. Really try to get that trike out early and the next turn start copying it with your copy artifacts. So the 4/4 Triskelion hits the battlefield here for Mari. And is that a Shatter in hand there? That one red card next to the red elemental blast. It's hard to see. Could of course also fire off a psionic blast. The problem of that is that Mari in response can then take the counter self, deal 3 damage to you, and of course you also take 2 from the Psionic Blast, meaning you take 5 damage in total, which feels really, really bad. But then again, if you let the Trike live, it could get even worse. Gonna start here with a City of Brass. Gonna tap 2. Okay, so he has a Shatter in hand. That was the red card there, so it's gonna take 3 damage. Gonna drop to 17. Can again swing in for 2 here if he wants to, but he's going to go for the Time Walk instead. Going to go to 16. So this could be a turning point here. This turn by Olle, finding a Mox Ruby there in hand. Yeah, attacking here for 2 first. And again, Mari tapped out, so it's kind of risk-free again, and then passing the turn. So 16 for Mari. And this Triskelion is gone, and also 16, by the way, for Olle. Has an Animate Dead there in hand. That's pretty good. Could Animate Dead the Trike. That seems like a good move. Let's see if that's also what he's going to do. First playing out a Volcanic Island. Is he going to tap it here, playing 2 Animate Dead in his deck? An Animate Dead is really this card that some robots players play 1, some play 2, in this case 2, and some play 0. So it's not this auto include in robot decks, but I personally like it. I think it's a good addition. So the Animate Dead here bringing back, oh, and there's a copy. I'm expecting a red elemental blast here being fired off by Olle. No, he's going to go for the Psionic Blast instead. This may be better because that means that Mari then doesn't have a target left anymore. And then is probably going to go for the Mox Ruby instead. So first 3 damage, of course, here in response to the Psy Blast. So going to take 2 from the Psy, go to 14. And then take 3 damage. And now he is, of course, going to copy the Mox Ruby. That's the only possible choice. And again, we see that the Trike is off the battlefield. Yeah, this is probably a better option than the red elemental blast, because this way you kind of have a 2-for-1, right? Because then Mari is forced to copy a Ruby that he really doesn't want to do, and you get to keep your red elemental blast. So Psy Blast in hand, red elemental blast in hand, is going to attack for 2. Going to put Mari on 14, play a land, pass the turn. In hand, I believe, a red elemental blast and a psionic blast. Let's see what Mari is working with. 3 cards in hand, I believe. We have to wait and see. Could swing in for 2 here, for example. Yep, animating, attacking for 2. And now, I mean, Olle could play a Psionic Blast. And I think if you're Olle, you'd much rather use that direct damage directly on Mari. But it's tough, it's understandable, he needs a moment. If he plays it, he takes 2 more damage, will go down to 9. And it looks like he is going to fire it off. So he's going to destroy the Mishra's factory here. Gonna tap. Okay, there's a red elemental blast, taking care of that. So 2 damage then taken from the factory, gonna drop to 9. And passing the turn. So 9 against 14. Ooh, there's another factory. That's a pretty good draw. Is he going to do it? Is he going to animate? Is he going to play factory, animate, try to swing in for 3? That could be an option. Would put Mari on 11. Unless Mari, of course, has a bolt. That's always the risk when you start animating your creatures. Or, of course, a shatter. As soon as you animate your factory, you know you're taking a risk. And sometimes you can attack risk-free, as we saw Olle do a few times. That's, of course, when your opponent taps out. Gonna tap the ruby here. Animate, attack for 2. So interesting, right? Doesn't want to give Mari the information that he has another factory in hand. Prefers to first attack and see what happens. Another line could have been to play the factory, pump the factory you're attacking with, but then you are, of course, giving Mari the information that you have that other backup factory. So didn't want to give that information. And Mari now on 12. Difficult position for Mari to be in. You know, if he attacks with the factory, he's basically offering a trade. Then I really wonder what's going to happen. And if Olle that just takes the damage, he would go to 7, can attack for 4 the next turn. Yeah, Mari understandably really in the tank here. Gonna tap 2. Gonna see a Chaos Orb. Okay, wow. Gonna activate the orb. No response. Gonna flip on the untapped factory. This is a pretty big flip here in the semifinals, game number 2. Oh, it's a miss. Oh, man. And I said semifinals, by the way. Of course, I meant the quarterfinals, excuse me. But, oh, this is a miss for Mari. Ay, 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 ay. That could be devastating. And there's, I believe, is there a counterspell in hand there for Olle? Did he find a counterspell from the top? That would be quite good. And this must give confidence to Olle as well. He's going to attack here for 4. Mari dropping to 8. And I think it's important for Mari now to kind of think, okay, this happened. Let's just keep going. 3 cards in hand there. A land? Is that a Surrender of Freak, perhaps? I couldn't quite see it. He's first going to attack for 2, it seems. Yep, going to put Olle here on 7. And passing the turn. Okay, so I guess it wasn't a surrender, or else he would have played it out. Perhaps another blue card there. Psionic Blast, for example. There's an Iron Claw Orc being picked up from the top, I believe, for Olle. First going to animate, swing in for 2. Or for 4, actually. Going to put him on 4. Unless, of course, he's going to fire off some direct damage. No, he's not. Going to go to 4. This is a very close match. Just a pass turn. And I believe Olle has a counterspell, a red Elemental Blast, and I think an Iron Claw Orc in hand. I have no idea what Mari has. He's got 2 cards in hand, I believe. Passing the turn. This is going to be interesting. There's a Black Lotus being drawn. It's going to animate probably 1 factory, because then he's basically offering the trade here for Mari. So Mari could animate his factory, pump it. And then, of course, Olle will use his other factory to pump his factory. So then it's a 3-3 against a 3-3, and they trade. Yeah, and Mari again going through his cards. But I'm pretty sure if there's direct damage in there, he would have fired it off already. He's going to animate. He's going to block, and he's going to trade. There we go. And what's he going to do second main? Are we going to see that Iron Claw Orc? I mean, he can play out the Black Lotus to keep counter magic up and just cast Iron Claw Orc. That's kind of what I'm expecting to see here. So there's the Black Lotus. Exactly, Black Lotus hitting the board. Is he going to tap a red and a blue here for the Iron Claw Orc? He's going to sack it to play the Orc. Wow. So this is, again, for me, it's really interesting to see a player like Olle Like sometimes he makes a different decision than I would make. And of course, he's a much better player than I am. Okay, here we see a blue Elemental Blast, by the way. There we see a red Elemental Blast. And there's a counter spell. Love that altar, by the way. Beautiful altar. Old school Batman. And I think Olle can appreciate it as well. And what I wanted to say, it's always interesting to see these like pro players make a decision that I wouldn't make, because it means that I probably would make the wrong decision. So I'm always like kind of curious to hear about the motivation. And here's gonna untap, upkeep, draw. There's the attack for 2. And passing the turn, Volcanic Island. I believe that card in hand for Olle is a counterspell. If it is a counterspell, then he's in a very, very, very good position, and he's very close to winning the second game. Madi, 2 cards in hand now. What will he do? Tapping 6. Are we going to see a trike? There's a trike. There's a counterspell. That's it. Winning a game number 2. That means it's 1-1, and we're going to go to a deciding game number 3. I can't wait. Game number 3, here we go. So it's Madi, of course, on the play after losing that second game. And Olle here taking a mulligan, going down to 6 cards in hand. He is on the draw. Let's see, Madi keeping his 7, it seems. Let's see what he can do. So the winner will advance to the semifinals here of the Raging Bull Series. And of course, we will also show that to you next week right here on Timmy Talks. So let's see what Olle can do in his turn 1. And he's going to drop a Mishra's Factory here. And he's got a Mock Sapphire in hand. And he's going to play it out. Passing the turn here to Madi. He's got a red Elemental Blast there in hand as well. There's a Mishra's Factory there for Madi at the top. Could, of course, play a Factory as well and pass. But no idea what other cards he's got in hand. Really hard to see from this angle. I believe that card there is a Mishra's Factory. Exactly. Going to play the Factory. Going to tap 2. Are we going to see a Sage of Latnam? No, there's a Demonic Tutor. And there are a lot of altered cards, by the way, in the deck of Madi. And most of those altars have an interesting story. I don't know the story behind this one, by the way. So maybe just ask in the comments. Maybe maybe Madi will reply. So he's going to shuffle up. And then, of course, the big question always is, what will you get with the Demonic? Is it just going to be an Ancestral Recall in this case? That's kind of the obvious choice. But we'll see. Passing the turn here to Olle. So, there's a Mana Drain in hand. So could go for Volcanic Island, keep Mana Drain open to potentially counter away that Ancestral Recall of Madi. Also, of course, has a red Elemental Blast, so could do that as well. Could play the Volcanic, animate the Factory, swing in for 2, and then keep that red Elemental Blast open. So there are a few lines here that Olle can follow. Is he going to drop the land? Yes or no? That's a question right now. And then we'll see if he's going to animate the Factory, yes or no. He is going to play the Volcanic. It's kind of funny to see like how slow he drops the lands. He's got a Psionic Blast, Mana Drain, red Elemental Blast in hand. And is that a Factory perhaps? And a land there? Gonna attack for 2. So it looks like he's gonna go for that, keep red Elemental Blast open play. And I think what Olle does really well in all these matches is as soon as he kind of has a free attack with the Factory, he almost always takes it. Like he prefers that over doing something else. I mean, dealing damage is so important for the counter-burn strategy. Whenever you can, you just got to deal those points of damage. And now let's see what Madi can do. If he's going to fire off the Ancestral Recall. If he looked that up, of course. I think knowing Madi, like he's a very good player. I don't expect him to, if he has the Ancestral Recall, to now just play the Ancestral Recall. Unless, of course, he can do Island, have a blue Elemental Blast in hand to protect his Ancestral Recall. He's going to tap 1. Okay, there's a Soul Ring. Going to play a Black Lotus, tapping 6. Ooh, going to go for a Mind Twist. So, looked up the Mind Twist. Probably because he had the Black Lotus or looked up the Black Lotus. Either way, this is a devastating play here for Olle, losing his entire hand. There's the box. Yeah, and Olle really wasn't expecting this. I mean, Soul Ring, Black Lotus into Mind Twist. I didn't see that coming at all. Yeah, this is really tough now for Olle, also because of that Strip Mine. And I would almost be tempted exactly to strip here before draw to take care of the Volcanic Island. That's what I would do, but let's see. Mari going to go for the Manland, realizing that protecting his life total is the most important thing against these counter burn decks. I think the only thing that can save Olle now is just a quick draw 7. But then, of course, he needs an extra land that's now stripped away. Because a Time Twister or a Wheel of Fortune, those are the cards that can kind of get you back into it after a Mind Twist. But it looks like this Mind Twist is going to be decisive here in the quarterfinals of the Raging Bull series. There's another Factory. So could swing in for 3 here. Going to animate. And then he can pump. Going to pump it. Going to deal 3. Are we going to see a Bolt? No, we're not. Just 17 for Olle. Can he find a land at least? Nope. Passing the turn. I mean, you're kind of hoping here that Olle can find a land and a draw 7. And can make it into a match again. But it's going to go fast now. 4 damage a turn with the double Factory attacks. We do see a Bolt at least on 1. So 2 damage remains. He's going to drop to 15. Going to take a damage. And there's a Time Walk. Yeah, this is great for Mari here. Going to draw for turn. What else are we going to see? Just another attack, or perhaps a Suchi, or another land and a Trike. There's the Mox Ruby. Has 6 mana now. But he's just going to attack for 2. Going to put Olle here on 13. Then he's going to tap 4. Going to take another damage from the city. And, oh, I was expecting a Suchi. We see an Abyss instead. Yeah, and there's a Chain Lightning. And is that looks like a black card in hand. Right? Is that maybe the Mind Twist of Olle? Cannot play it out. And also the chain is not great because it's sorcery speed. He is going to fire it off. You're going to put Mari on 13. Passing the turn. And Mari can just continue attacking. Doesn't have to worry now about the Bolt because, of course, Olle only has that Sapphire untapped. Looks like he wants to do something here. Going to tap 4. Are we going to see a Suchi? Mari changing his mind. Deciding to attack instead. Going to put Olle here on 11. And then play the Suchi with his other mana. Does mean he takes the damage from the city. Drops to 12. Okay, there's an island. Does he have a draw 7? No, he does not. Passing the turn. I believe there's a black card in his hand if I saw it correctly, but I'm not 100% sure. Yeah, there's the Ancestral Recall. Yeah, there's a Mind Twist. And here you've got Olle saying, you know what? I have seen enough. And rightfully so, was only finding lands at the top there, so Olle knows when he's beaten, and yeah, the Mind Twist was just the turning point, right, in this game number 3. That was absolutely devastating. Before that, we actually had a really, really close match. Talking about close matches, next week we will be back with more action from the Raging Bull series, and then we're going to look at this semi-finals. We've got Dead Guy Ill on Acid by Koen, the defending champion of the Raging Bull series, and he's taking on Triple S, a deck by Gwen, Belgian player. So we've got the Netherlands versus Belgium for you next week. Now, if you don't want to miss a thing, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring that bell. Okay, and thank you for doing that. And before you go, please take a moment to also like, share, and comment on this video. All these things are free and really help the channel move forward. And of course, you can also become a patron of the show. Check out patreon.com/TimmyTalks to find out how you can support Timmy Talks financially as well. And when you become a supporter for $2 or more, by the way, you get Timmy stickers, you get access to the Timmy Talks Discord, and your name will be mentioned at the end of every video in the end scroll. What end scroll? This end scroll.
What shall we do with the drunken sailor? What shall we do with the drunken sailor? What shall we do with the drunken sailor? Early in the morning, way hey and up she rises, way hey and up she rises, way hey and up she rises. Early in the morning, putting in the longboat until he's sober, putting in the longboat until he's sober, putting in the longboat until he's sober. Early in the morning, way hey and up she rises, way hey and up she rises. She rises early in the morning. Pull out the plug and wet him all over. Pull out the plug and wet him all over. Pull out the plug and wet him all over. Early in the morning. Way hey up she rises. Way hey up she rises. Way hey up she rises early in the morning. What shall we do with the drunken sailor? What shall we do with the drunken sailor? Put him in the scoundrel, 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 put him in the scoundrel. Early in the morning, way hey up she rises, way hey up she rises, way hey up she rises early in the morning.
Icketus, ficketus, sumba, kazee.